Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening for the Dixie Fire Incident Update. My name is Antonio Negretti. I'm one of the Incident Public Information Officers for the Dixie Fire assigned to the incident. This evening, you will be hearing from various experts in their field updating you on recent evaluations, fire activity, and weather. You will also be hearing from incident commanders from 2 base camps and teams that we now have in place. You'll be hearing different terminology this evening since we have now split the fire in 2 zones. One is the West Zone that the CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 1 is managing, and the other is the East Zone that the California Interagency Incident Management Team 2 is managing. You'll be able to hear from both sides on the progress of the incident. Utilization of 2 teams does not change the way we fight the fire. We're still providing the service that is needed. This is strictly a management situation for the resources that are continuously coming in. For those of you on Zoom, if you could please make sure to mute your microphones. And for those of you on Facebook, please be patient as we may be bringing in Zoom speaker participants. A reminder to all of you watching, if you have questions for us, we'll make every attempt to answer them. For those of you on Facebook, please put those questions on the comments section, and on Zoom, please use the chat box. First, let me bring you the latest numbers regarding the Dixie Fire. The Dixie Fire is currently at 198,021 acres with 22% containment. There are currently 5,105 fire personnel assigned to the incident. I'd now like to introduce you to our first speaker. Please welcome our incident meteorologist, Julia Rutherford.
Good evening. My name is Julia Rutherford. I'm the incident meteorologist that's supporting the West Zone of the Dixie Fire, and I'm going to be providing a update on the fire weather conditions today and what's coming up. So for today, we had another day where we had quite a bit of smoke over the majority of the fire. A strong inversion that kept the smoke in over the valley, up to the north, and quite a bit to the east as well. The farther west areas of the fire, due to the southwest winds that were pushing up that area, saw some clearer air along the west side of the ridges. So that really had a big impact on the temperatures and relative humidities across the fire. The areas where there was less smoke or no smoke, we saw humidities in a few spots getting into the upper teens and some areas in the 20% range. But then as you went further to the east, especially down in the valley bottoms, humidity stayed a lot higher. Other impact of the smoke was that the temperatures stayed cooler in the areas with the smoke, warmer in the areas without. So for the bulk of the fire today, that smoke once again helped keep it shaded. The mid-level moisture that I talked about coming up yesterday is definitely in place. If you were outside today, you would have noticed some clouds moving through, some little virga showers. And what virga is when you have rain that falls out of a cloud and evaporates before it hits the ground. So you see kind of the streaks falling out of the clouds. The cause of that was actually some thunderstorms that were quite a ways away. They were storms that formed up around the Lake Tahoe area, and as those storms dissipated, debris clouds from those storms moved up over this area. So all that was left was just some high-level moisture, and you could see that virga streaming down. There were reports of places on the fire that got some light sprinkles, but not a whole lot of precipitation out of that. Also on the west side, there was a little bit of column development, but not nearly as much as I was afraid we were going to see yesterday when I thought that the smoke wasn't going to actually clear all the way out. So for a second day in a row, we were really helped out with the smoke, keeping things a lot more mild than they otherwise would have been without that in place. So what we're looking at going forward is we have another band of moisture that's going to be moving up through the overnight hours. Sometime around about 3 to 7 a.m. is when it's going to be passing over the fire area. It's moving up from the southeast. It's more of this mid-level moisture that's a ways up in the atmosphere. So It's going to be, we'll likely see some scattered showers. There'll be really light precipitation amounts, just traces here and there, nothing real heavy, and it'll be really spotty where it hits. So it's hard to say right now whether the fire will get any right on it, but you will see those moving up during the overnight hours. There's also enough instability. There's a real slight chance we could see thunderstorm mixed in there too. If we did, it would just be a few lightning strikes, just a pretty minimal system as it comes up, with the potential for some light rain here and there, and maybe some thunder out of it. After that, we'll start off the day tomorrow with more of those clouds left over from that, so that's going to help bring us a cooler day with somewhat milder humidities. For Tuesday, we're just looking at winds that are generally out of the west to northwest, so for the smoke, that means this west side will clear out. However, north and east places, Lake Elmendor, Quincy area, and everything to the west is going to still have to the east, is still going to have fairly heavy smoke impacts. It's unlikely that the inversion will mix all the way out, though it's possible. If it does happen, it would be pretty late in the day. As we move into the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday time period, stronger ridging is going to build back in from the desert southwest and Great Basin. That'll bring an increase in temperature, so we'll see a return to well above normal temperatures. Relative humidities will be gradually dropping through that time period as well. And then we're going to also see the prevailing southwest winds will get a little bit lighter, but we'll see our overnight northeast winds strengthen a bit in response to those very warm conditions. There'll still be enough moisture around each afternoon and evening. You'll see cumulus buildups forming over the mountains with a slight chance of thunderstorms. Right now, it still looks like mostly they'll be forming to the east of the fire, up closer to the crest of the Cascades, but that's something we'll be watching every afternoon to see if anything does get into that area. And that same general pattern is going to be continuing into the weekend. And that's the end of the weather update.
Thank you very much. That was our incident meteorologist, Julia Ruthford. We understand that we are currently having some technical difficulties for our Facebook broadcast. Please don't worry. We will be recording that here in our studio. We will then show that at a later date. So if you would like, please tune in at a later time, and you can see the recorded broadcast so you don't miss any information. On that note, I'd like to introduce our second presenter from the West Zone CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 1, Chief Mike Wink.
Good evening, and thank you for joining for our operational update. Just as a reminder, the West Zone of the Dixie runs the Highway 70 corridor up to the Caribou drainage, up here to Lake Almanor, and then off to the east and then northeast. And that encompasses the West Zone. So we're going to start down here in the bottom, along the Highway 70 corridor from Caribou drainage all the way to the fire's edge. Those operations continue today as what we call tactical patrol, and they're mopping up around all of the homes, all of the critical infrastructure and point protection, all along the Highway 70 corridor, both sides of the highway there, to make sure no additional flare-ups or hot spots damage anything. As we come to the fire's edge here, once again here in Alpha and Bravo, no change. We're in patrol status, looking for those hot spots, some 500 plus feet in on the fire's edge. That's this black area here. In Division Charlie, 2 days ago, we had a little control items came up, little flare-ups on the line that we had to deal with. Those have now been holding yesterday and today's operational period. So we're holding the fire's edge there in Division Charlie, which is just north and east of Sterling City right here. And so we have primary line on the fire's edge and then secondary line out from there. As we come up here into Echo and Foxtrot, once again, taking action on the fire's edge where possible, but this area right in here is very treacherous, very rugged, very inaccessible. So we're focusing a lot of our efforts right now, trying to keep this in check, in its place, while we build heavy contingency line or fire's edge line right around this area in the Jonesville, Butte Meadows area, just outside of those communities, really strengthening those lines, making them wider, reducing those fuels with masticators, and in here doing point protection and prep for when we believe the fire is probably going to come to these borders, but focusing on the point protection, the critical infrastructure, and the structures within here, making sure that we protect those values at risk. As we get up here in Division Gulf and Ida, last night's period allowed us to go from the top of Humboldt Mountain south towards Jonesville and get down here into the division break at the bottom of the mountain at the creek there, into Butte Creek. And then we stopped right there, so we were able to put black line in there with the firing operation so that when the main fire reaches there, that fuel has been reduced and consumed, and we stop it right there. Okay, and then today's period saw us start to try to make the plan to go from Humboldt back towards what they call DP 102, or back here towards Lake Almanor on Humboldt Road. So those efforts actually went from towards the Lake Almanor side. You see this red stuff that's been burned. From that side back to the west, the southwest along Humboldt, going very, very slow. It's very rugged, steep, heavy fuels, very receptive fuel beds. And this is one of the areas that we talked about in the last couple of days where we were able to use an unusual technique that we don't have a lot of opportunity to use. We used water tenders to pre-treat the uphill side or the other side of this road system, where the fuel bed, when it has the fire retardant on it that comes out of the planes, the fire retardant is on there and it's less receptive to ember casts and fire spread. So those efforts are going well in today's operational period. I'm going to come back here to Canyon Dam. Once again, those efforts from Canyon Dam all along this to continue to mop up the edge of this road infrastructure on the Lake Almanor side, of the Highway 89 side, while we continue to build depth and let it back towards the main fire, reducing those fuels. So like right here where it touched, and it'll probably touch over here tomorrow, that once they join, then they've consumed the fuels and it runs out of energy release component and all those fuels to build steam to challenge the line that we put in up there. So those efforts are going well. No change in this area in the caribou drainage, with the structures being protected up here and prepping them, and the stuff down here in Caribou, the Swiss cabin, the historic Caribou powerhouse, no change in there. Those are being watched and prepared. Here on the Highway 89 corridor, across the zone line into the east zone, here and on the Highway 70 corridor, we're working with Management Team 2 and sharing resources, having good communications with the operational leadership and the branch directors and all the fire line personnel about how we can help each other in that area as we cross those zones while we're working towards a common goal. 3 base camps, 2 teams, 1 large fire, 1 mission working together. So thank you for today's update.
Okay, thank you, Chief Wink. Once again, that was our operations section chief for the West Zone. Just to remind you again, we are currently experiencing technical problems for the Facebook Live broadcast of our evening tonight. Just to let you know, though, we are currently recording everything that's going on for Facebook, and after the presentation, we will immediately post the recording. So those of you out there monitoring Facebook, you will be able to see tonight's update. Our next presenter we'd like to bring in from the East Zone via Zoom, from the California Interagency Incident Management Team 2, Operations Section Chief John Goss.
Okay, good evening from the East Zone. So a couple of things have been in our favor the last 2 days. The weather change, the thick inversion there, has given us an opportunity to do some things that were not available 2 days ago. So I'll go ahead and start up in the northern portion of our zone today, right there at Canyon Dam and Highway 89. The dozer line you see on the map there is in place, and we've been in the process of the last 2 days strengthening up this dozer line and continuing that dozer line all the way down through Long Valley, to Round Valley Reservoir, and then down to Highway 89 right there in the town of Moccasin. About 2 hours ago, firing operations started just above Moccasin there to create that buffer of fire there to prevent that further fire spread to the north and northeast. So those firing operations are ongoing as we speak. Coming up out of Highway 89, grabbing the Empire Grade Road up towards Mount Huff. Road prep continues there, trying to basically bring that fire line up above the community of Taylorsville and all the way up to Mount Huff. Last night's fire activity that threw some spots over Mount Huff into that Montgomery Creek drainage. We've got crews out there right now going direct on that piece to keep any further spread down into Montgomery Creek and out towards Genesee Valley Road. So the plan for tonight, once the folks that are up on top of Mount Huff to continue their firing operations that started last night. Last night we got about 1.5 miles of fire line. The plan for tonight is to do the same thing, about another mile of road that has been prepped and ready to go for some firing operations. With the ultimate goal is to get it down into the Quincy Junction area in the Highway 70-89. From there, the folks there, they're going to grab right there at the town of Kitty. We've got the road system that connects Kitty through Butterfly Valley. That's an indirect piece of road that we're prepping. And the plan is for also to, as conditions allow, which the conditions are very conducive at night, to go ahead and bring some firing operations in as well. From the point that road system in Butterfly Valley picks up the direct fire's edge, we had a good chance today to go direct. So we've got about 3 or 4 miles of line of direct hand line that gets us out into the Snake Lake and the Silver Lake country. Now from there, the folks, the bulk of the fire activity today was out in the Bucks Lakes Wilderness area. So we've got crews, we've got equipment there that are still putting in direct and indirect containment lines for future containment lines. From there down into Bucks Lake, the line that has been holding the last 3 days that gets you from Bucks Lake down to the Highway 70 corridor, right there at Rock Creek, continues to hold, and we're not expecting any type of southerly movement on that particular portion of the line.
Okay, thank you, Chief Goss. Our next speaker from the Plymouth County Sheriff's Office via Zoom out in the East Zone, we have Deputy Chandler P.
Good evening. My name is Deputy Chandler Pay. I'm with the Plymouth County Sheriff's Office. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Office of Emergency Services here in Plymouth County. And I'd like to thank the incident management teams for the positive report tonight. We're happy to hear that, as well as I'm sure everybody online is happy to hear that as well. There were no changes today to any of our current evacuation orders or warnings. We would like to remind the public that is traveling out of or near evacuated areas and that they need to follow proper egress routes. Those directions were provided in all of the orders that we sent out on your mobile notifications. So we just want to make sure that you're following those proper egress routes if you still remain in the area or traveling around. And please don't follow your mobile device or any GPS directions. Those could take you into a hazardous area. Damage assessment has begun in relation to the Dixie fire and the Fly fire. It's reported to us that Indian Falls has suffered a significant amount of damage, and we're working on obtaining the preliminary report from the CAL FIRE team. As soon as we obtain that report, a process will be put into play so that we can properly notify all of the residents that were affected. Currently, for Plymouth County residents, there are approximately 4,000 of you that are in an evacuated area, and we are working as diligently as we can to make sure that you can return safely to your homes once all the hazard mitigation is done. Currently, right now, we have shelters established in Quincy, Chester, and Susanville. Our Red Bluff shelter is in the process of closing. So if you're still seeking shelter, please go to either Quincy, Chester, or Susanville for that. Right now, the county, in conjunction with the Plymouth Crisis and Resource Center, is working to establish a monetary donation account at Plymouth Bank We'll post more information and come back to you with more information as soon as that's set up. We're also working with the Office of Emergency Services at the state level to establish a local assistance center that is in the process of being opened so that residents will be able to get information on their properties, how to proceed if their property was affected, and they will also be able to receive other resources as well. We've also been made aware today that waste management services in many areas of the county have been temporarily suspended due to the Dixie fire, specifically in the Quincy area, the Chester area, and we've been told the LaPorte area. The county is aware of this issue and we're working to mitigate this issue. Again, same as last night, I would like to thank all of the firefighters that are out here working on this fire, both the incident management teams for all their hard work, along with the dozens of law enforcement mutual aid that we've received. Our small county is very appreciative of this service, and I think that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Pay. That was some great information. We will now return back to the East Zone, where we have for you tonight the supervisor for the Plymouth National Forest, Chris Carlton.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks again for making time to join us for some information about this Dixie fire. Just a couple of brief updates. First of all, we know that as those teams are able to get in and get some additional information, we're all really anxious for it. I would just ask that we continue to show the patience that we have. I know it's difficult. There's a lot of concern, but the sheriff's department's doing a phenomenal job of getting those resources in there. From the forest perspective, we're going to be making sure that we work hand in hand with the sheriff and with CHP. There are forest closures out there. I want to address that. And we have those in place to make sure that people are not going into areas that are unsafe. However, I also want to be clear, we do not make decisions involving county roads or state routes or private property. And so when that time comes and people are able to get back in there, I just want to make sure we're going to work hand in hand so that the closure and the evacuation rules are clear to everybody. I know that's been a concern on other incidents in the past. I also really wanted to acknowledge the support that our firefighters continue to receive on this incident. It's been really inspiring to see everyone out there who's also struggling with their own challenges continue to reach out, offer support, help, and encouragement for those firefighters and those law enforcement personnel who are coming from all over the state and outside the state, all over the country to help us out here. So just a note of appreciation for them. And then just lastly, a little bit of information. On this incident, we have approximately 20% of all firefighting resources in the nation currently assigned to the Dixie fire. So we all know that there's a lot of fires elsewhere in the country right now, but that really just shows how important these communities are and how much people are willing to come out and support. So thank you. Have a great, safe evening, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Supervisor Carlton. Our final speaker of the evening from the East Zone is the East Zone Incident Commander for the California Interagency Incident Management Team 2, Nikki Johnny.
Good afternoon. Just as Supervisor Carlton said, we have a large fire. It's almost 200,000 acres. Nationally, we have over 64 large fires, and 34 of those have IMTs, federal IMTs on them. We have fires in the Rocky Mountain, Northern Rockies, and the Northwest, as well as California. When we get to the state, when there's this many fires going on in the nation, we start prioritizing where we send federal resources in wildland fire. And so on this fire in particular, we have a lot of support from local government and CAL FIRE, and I just wanted to thank them for that. because we are strapped federally with resources all over the nation. A majority of the Dixie Fire is on federal lands. And so that's why it's so important that we have the help of our cooperators and CAL FIRE. When we first got to this assignment, we were struggling finding showering units and a caterer. And that just shows how much the nation is strapped for resources and service resources as well. We ended up getting some of these service supplies from the Beckworth Fire. The routes to Quincy have also been compromised, and restaurants have started shutting down, as well as shelves emptying out in the grocery stores and other markets. And so I just wanted to say thank you to the communities for pulling together, the communities that we're trying to serve, and thank you for supporting the firefighters at this time. Thank you.
And our final speaker for the evening before we go to questions is the incident commander for the West Zone, Chief Nick Truax.
All right, good evening. So I'll start with kind of updating the damage inspection numbers that got done for today. Damage inspectors were able to get into the Indian Falls area and get about 70% of that area done today. So far, we are up to 36 structures destroyed with 7 damaged, and they're estimating that they're about 50% done with what has currently burned in the fire. So they're still working through that. We actually have started turning over that data today, or this evening, to Plymouth County. So hopefully in the near future that will be getting out to the public and working through your county EOC to get that information. Some other statistics. Currently, over 10,000 structures remain threatened, with an estimated 16,000 residents displaced. We currently have over 100 agencies committed to the incident. That's state and federal firefighters, local government, law enforcement, public service districts. You know, there's a ton of people out there trying to get this fire contained, under control, and get your lives back to normal. That's our #1 goal. A few questions that have come up are about the smoke. They're asking about how dangerous the wildfire smoke is and stuff. You know, different fires have different issues with the smoke. Fires that have more structures burning, trash, those kind of things, obviously are worse than those that are forest fuels. But all of them are, you know, especially in the areas up or by Almanor and Quincy and those areas that were really smoked in the last couple days. It's definitely a health concern, especially those that may have lung or other health issues. So we definitely would recommend that if you're able to leave the area while it's that smoky, then that would probably be a good thing. Or just stay indoors if you have some kind of air filtration. Wear a mask when you're outside that can filter some of that smoke. And again, that's especially for folks that have under other health issues or lung issues that are out there. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chief Truax. A majority of the questions tonight were answered during the presentation from the speakers. We'll now move back to the period of answering a few of those outstanding questions. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to the East Zone, where the command staff there in the East Zone will answer the questions that were approached to them via Zoom.
Okay, a couple of questions that came up. Question on what is happening to help with Greenville and Crescent Mill. So the line location, the dozer line that starts at Canyon Dam, kind of heads through Long Valley, and then down through Round Valley Reservoir, eventually ending up down at Moccasin. What that's going to do is keep our primary fire line completely out of both of those two towns there, Greenville and Crescent Mill. So that's the plan right now. And again, those firing operations that started this evening is going to go a long way into helping keeping that fire out of Crescent Mills first and then Green Valley second. We're also getting a lot of resource help from the West Zone. So on a daily basis, both Operations Section Chief have a phone call, and wherever that the biggest need or that potential threat for structure mitigation, structure protection is, we're sharing those resources back and forth. Another thing that happened today that we have not had in the last couple of days is we're starting to get resources from other fires. So a lot of OES and local government engine strike teams, large engines, Type 1 engines, and Type 3 engines showed up today. So that's also going to help us with our efforts there in the vicinity of Crescent Mill and Greenville. As far as the status of Meadow Valley, kind of hopscotching over towards Bucks Lake, we've got a good plan in place, and it's a similar plan as what we're doing over in Crescent Mills. Is we've got dozer line up above Meadow Valley, so the plan over there is to keep any fire control lines completely out of Meadow Valley. So at this point, there is no threat to Meadow Valley or Bucks Lake. Question came in about is the intent to burn through the chip scar? There's a couple of things that we're doing with the previous fire scars. So we have been opening up old dozer line, old road systems, old hand line, and that's the big dozer line you see that starts at Canyon Dam and gets you down towards Round Valley Reservoir. So we're using some of the lines that worked and held from the chips, but our intent is not to just let it burn through the chips, because it's that fire is 9 years old now. And the fire is still spreading through the chips. It's slowing it down, so we're also going to use that as an opportunity to do some direct handline construction there with dozers and hand crews, because the fire is not exhibiting as rapid rates of spread as areas outside of the chips fire scar. A question came in about the small, what was the fly fire. It was that piece, that finger below 1789. And what we're doing with that piece there, so that's the piece that we're going to grab the bottom of that portion of the fly incident and use road systems to tie it back to Butterfly Valley. So that's happening tonight. So we're actually, it's an advantage using that piece of the portion of the fly fire, because at this point that line is holding in place. And then we'll use that to our advantage this evening and potentially do some burning operations in that area. Question also about how far is the fire from Quincy Junction, and it's approximately 2.5 miles from Quincy Junction. And then we've also got 3 plans, but the primary plan there is to keep fire completely out of Quincy Junction. Using Spanish Creek, we've got some dozer line that is going to keep it out of that intersection, basically of Quincy Junction and the Huff Mountain Road that gets you up on top of the mountain there. So again, the plan is to keep it completely out of Quincy Junction and use more the ridge system above Spanish Creek. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Goss. That was the East Zone Operations Section Chief. Our next speaker we'd like to bring in to answer some questions that were addressed to him are the Plymouth County Sheriff's Office Deputy Chandler Pay.
Looks like there was only a couple questions that were passed on to me. One of the questions was why was the east shore of Lake Almanor placed into a mandatory evacuation order? And just like all the other areas that were placed into these orders, it was an assessment of life safety issues, evacuation route issues, and so that's why that decision was made at the time. And another question was in regards to the Indian Valley Community Services District boil water notice. We did receive information from the Indian Valley Community Services District that they issued a boil water notice for the residents of Crescent Mills, and I would defer you to the Indian Valley Community Services District for that full release. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Pay. And our final speaker for the evening, we will return to the Operations Section Chief for CAL FIRE Incident Management in Team 1, Chief Mike Wink.
My first question this evening is how far and how active is the fire from Butte Meadows? So Butte Meadows is right here, Jonesville is right here, so you can see approximately a half a mile from Jonesville, and we'll say approximately 1.5 to 2 miles from Butte Meadows. So a lot of efforts being placed in here. We know that there's a lot of folks evacuated out of there, just like all around the perimeter of the fire. But this question about Butte Meadows specifically, we're working on this plan to strengthen these dozer lines, keeping this piece in check while we really, really enforce these and look at point protection and preparing this inside for, this is some really rugged, steep terrain between the community and where the fire is now. So that area, our plan is to, over the next several days, slowly bring the fire's edge around these dozer lines while we're protecting everything in here. And that, we feel, is our best method to protect Butte Meadows and Jonesville and all those other communities. Estimated time for evacuations to be lifted. So those, it's very dynamic. There's still a lot of fire perimeter control to be going on out there. And once the perimeter control, we're making progress on that. Once that's done, there's a process with the counties, with Caltrans and CHP, the utility providers, county public health departments, water, sewer, all those things have to be evaluated and made safe before they open that up to evacuation. So it is going to take some time. There is a process. I would suggest you go to your local county websites and look for some direction on that. There was a lot of aircraft flying this afternoon over Magalia, and that was a concern. So we've got Magalia pretty far down here to the south and west away from the fire perimeter. So that's a good thing. We don't expect any spread towards Magalia, but this afternoon when the conditions were right, we flew a lot of helicopters all day, but this afternoon we had 9 aircraft circling over the fire to drop that retardant over here in this area to strengthen those lines to prepare what's going to be happening over the next few days. Question about Lake Almanor West. So Lake Almanor West, our efforts have been going really well up here along this road that parallels Highway 89 and then to Humboldt. As we continue down here, that's our biggest area of threat to all of the communities around Lake Almanor, including Almanor West. So we are we're very optimistic, and things are going well up here as the fire consumes up to our controlled line. And that is, all those efforts are to protect all the communities around Lake Almanor and in the surrounding areas. So that's going well. And the last question for tonight is, once again, just a reminder that we're, how are we working across the zones, and how do people find out about structures? Incident Commander Truax addressed how do you get information about structures, and we're working across the Highway 70 zones and across Highway 89, working with each other. And that's my questions for tonight. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Actually, we do have one more speaker. Our incident commander from the West Zone, Chief Nick Truax, would like to address a question that was presented to him during the broadcast.
All right, we're getting a lot of questions about destroyed structures, and we totally understand that. One of the questions was a basic summary of the communities that have been significantly damaged and or have lost multiple homes. So again, I'm going to name a few of the areas where we've been able to get through with damage inspection, and they have a percentage, not all of them, but a percentage of destroyed structures in these areas. Indian Falls, Belden, Indian Creek, Rich Bar, Caribou, and Smith Point. Those seem to be the most heavily affected areas that our damage inspectors have gotten to so far. That's not to say that there won't be destroyed structures in other areas. Again, we're only about 50% completed with what the fire area has burned so far. And then also, it's not to say that every structure in those areas burned either. There in the coming days through Plymouth County, there will be interactive maps and stuff where you'll be able to view that area, and a process for homeowners to get more information from them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief Truax. We do appreciate all the questions that have come in this evening, and we have answered most of those questions for you. We'd like to thank all the presenters as well for their great information. Just a few things before we close out. If you'd like to find the evacuation maps for Plymouth and Butte counties, you may find those listed on their respective websites. After this presentation, a screen will come up with a QR code that will link you with the evacuation maps that you may utilize. Also, to let you know, we are doing updated information every morning at 7 a.m., another update in the afternoon, as well as the update at 7 p.m. There will be a slide after this as well with the QR code to link you to that incident update. There's also a slide with a QR code to link you to the Zoom option for tonight's presentation. At the end of this presentation, there is a list provided on screen of all the information boards out in the community. Please take advantage of looking at that list, and if you'd like to speak to someone in person, you may go to that information board tomorrow. We will have personnel out there with the up-to-the-minute information for your community. Also, the call center hotline has been broadcast to your screen, so please use that phone line if you have any questions. Join us tomorrow, Tuesday, July 27th, again here on Facebook, as well as Zoom for a Dixie incident update. In the meantime, you may go to InciWeb and search under the Dixie incident for the latest information. You may also go to the CAL FIRE homepage at www.ca.fire.gov. Please continue to follow social media platforms for the Lassen National Forest, Plymouth National Forest, and CAL FIRE BTU. As a reminder for those of you that were following us tonight on Facebook, we experienced some technical difficulties here in our broadcast center. Please know that immediately after this broadcast, we will be showing the taped broadcast. We are currently taping the Facebook broadcast, and it will be shown immediately after this presentation. We appreciate your time this evening. Thank you for joining us.